I worshipped Zane, not in the casual schoolgirl crush way. No, he was my entire universe. I followed him to his university, even when I had better offers elsewhere. I tailored my dreams to fit his world, thinking love meant sacrifice. He was my morning, my night, my everything. And yet, to him, I was a background character in the movie of his life, a reliable option, a pathetic afterthought. I convinced myself that if I tried harder, if I gave more, loved more, he would finally see me. But the truth, he never even looked. And when I finally realized it, I snapped. The betrayal wasn't just painful. It was surgical, precise, exquisite in its cruelty. One night, I walked into a party, expecting to surprise Zane. Instead, I saw them. Not just him. Her, my so-called best friend. His hands on her waist, her lips brushing his ear. I should have left, but then I heard it. She really thought I loved her? Zane's voice dripped with amusement. My best friend giggled. She was so desperate. It was too easy. I felt my world tilt, reality cracking like fragile glass. And in that moment, I knew they killed the old me. But I wouldn't just survive. I would rise. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not ever again. Instead, I disappeared. I blocked them, deleted my accounts, packed my bags. By morning, I was gone. I transferred universities, changed cities, wiped away every trace of my past. I refused to let them have the satisfaction of seeing me broken, because I wasn't. I was mutating, shedding my old, naive skin, reinventing myself. And when I reemerged, I would be unrecognizable, strong, untouchable, a force of nature. They thought they destroyed me. They had no idea what they had created. At my new university, I became a ghost. I spoke little, observed much. I studied harder than ever, but not just academics. I studied people. I learned power, manipulation, control. I saw how the world truly worked, how the strong thrived while the weak were devoured. I would never be weak again. Every time I wanted to break down, I remembered Zane's laughter, the smirk on my best friend's face, and I sharpened myself like a blade. By the time they would see me again, I wouldn't be the foolish girl who once worshipped love. I would be the nightmare they never saw coming. I started investing, small at first, freelancing, trading, making smart moves. I used my intelligence, my charm, my ability to read people. Soon, the numbers grew. 1,000 turned into 10, 10 into 100. Within 2 years, I wasn't just successful. I was untouchable. Business magazines featured me. My name trended. People whispered about the girl who came from nowhere and built an empire. I became someone people feared, respected, desired, but none of it compared to the moment I saw him again. Zane, once the center of my world, now a footnote in my success story. He was struggling. Life hadn't been kind. His business failed. His charm faded. He was a man who once had everything handed to him, now grasping at nothing. And when he saw me, when his eyes finally registered who I was, I saw it, the shock, the disbelief, the regret. He tried to play it cool, smiled, that same cocky grin. Long time no see. I let silence stretch between us, let him squirm. Then, with the coldest smirk, I simply said, "Have we met?" His face fell, and in that moment, I knew I had won. But my revenge wasn't complete. Not yet, because she was still out there. My ex-best friend, the girl who smiled while my world crumbled. She had built her happiness on my pain. And now, it was time for her to pay. I orchestrated it perfectly. A business opportunity, a dream job, a too good to be true offer that led her straight to me. And the moment she walked into the meeting, realizing who her new boss was, the color drained from her face. I watched her squirm, just like I had the night she betrayed me. And then, with a smile sharper than a knife, I said, "Oh, don't look so scared. This is just the beginning." She begged, apologized, said she had changed, that she was sorry. But I had heard enough lies to last a lifetime. I leaned in, my voice soft. "You taught me something valuable." She swallowed hard. What? I smiled, that some betrayals should never be forgiven. And then I ruined her. I took her opportunities, just like she had taken mine. Stripped away the career she had worked for. I didn't destroy her life. I simply made sure she was trapped, powerless, just like she once made me feel. And when she looked at me, broken and defeated, I whispered, "Now we're even." Zane tried again. Of course he did. Men like him always come back when they see you shining, when they realize what they lost. This time, it was a drunk message at 2 a.m. "I miss you." I laughed, deleted it, then posted a picture of me at a gala, standing beside the most powerful men in the industry, looking like a goddess. Caption: "Some things are meant to be left in the past." The message was clear, and when I checked back an hour later, I saw it. Zane blocked me. I smiled, knowing the truth. I was the one that got away. Success wasn't my revenge. It was my redemption. They thought they had shattered me, but they had only forged something unstoppable. I no longer needed love. I no longer chased people who couldn't see my worth. I had built an empire, but more importantly, I had built myself. And as I stood on a stage, receiving an award, cameras flashing, the world watching, I felt it. True power, true freedom. I wasn't just the girl who had been betrayed. I was the woman who had risen from the ashes. And I would never let anyone dim my light again. The world that once ignored me now couldn't stop watching. Every step I took, every decision I made commanded attention. I had transformed from the girl crying over unworthy love to the woman who made headlines. People whispered about me in admiration, in fear. How did she do it? She came from nothing and built an empire. But the truth was simple. I had stopped chasing love and started chasing power. And now power was mine. But the real satisfaction, it wasn't in the success. It was in knowing that the people who once mocked me now wished they were me. Zane was one of them. His life was a shadow of what it once was. He had burned bridges, lost business deals, and made too many enemies. Now, he was nothing more than a man reminiscing about his past, about me. I could feel his presence in my digital space, the silent views on my stories, the mutual connections asking about me. He wouldn't dare reach out again after the last time. But I knew he still wanted me, not out of love, but out of regret. And regret, it was the most delicious revenge of all. But my old best friend, she was different. She wasn't watching from the shadows. She was desperate. The job she lost because of me, she never recovered from it. Every interview led back to the same rejection. No one wanted a woman with a reputation for backstabbing. And now she wanted to talk. She wanted to apologize. She wanted forgiveness. She sent long emails, texts from unknown numbers. But I had moved past needing apologies because I didn't want her words. I wanted her to suffer the way I had suffered, and she did. Every door she knocked on closed. Every opportunity she chased vanished because she had burned the wrong bridge, and she only realized it when it was too late. Once she had laughed behind my back, thinking she had won. Now, she sat in silence, drowning in the consequences of her choices. The world I had built had no place for people like her. And the best part? I never even had to say a word. Karma did all the work for me. I was too busy winning. People often ask if I ever miss them, if I ever miss him. The answer? No. What I had felt back then wasn't love. It was delusion. Love shouldn't make you small. Love shouldn't make you beg. And yet, that's exactly what I had done, begged for crumbs of affection, as if my worth depended on someone else's validation. Now I knew better. The love I had wasted on him, I poured it into myself, into my dreams, into building a life so big, so powerful, that it didn't have space for people like him anymore. And yet, fate has a way of bringing the past back in the cruelest ways. One night, at a high-profile event, I saw him again, Zane. But this time, he wasn't the star of the room. He was a guest, lingering at the edges, forgotten, irrelevant. When our eyes met, he smiled nervously, as if he was waiting for me to acknowledge the history between us. But I didn't. I simply walked past him. No words, no glances. And in that moment, I knew. He felt exactly how I once did. Invisible. And that was the greatest revenge of all. But the real moment of power came later that night. A journalist approached me, asking if I had any words for my ex, the man who once thought he was too good for me. I simply smiled and said, I don't think about the past, only the future. The headline the next day, she doesn't even remember him. And that, more than anything, crushed him. Because to men like Zane, being hated is better than being forgotten. And I had just erased him from my story. The next morning, my inbox was flooded. Investors, business tycoons, top executives, all wanting to work with me. Not because I was someone's girlfriend, not because I was chasing love, but because I had made myself indispensable. This was the life I had always deserved. One where I wasn't an afterthought, a backup plan, or a girl begging for love. I was a force to be reckoned with. And the people who once underestimated me, now they feared me. As I stepped onto my private jet, ready to close another $1 million deal, I thought back to that naive girl who once cried over unworthy people. If only she could see me now. If only she knew that the heartbreak she once thought would destroy her was actually the thing that set her free. She had spent years chasing people who never deserved her. But in the end, she found the only person who truly mattered, herself. So, to every girl who has ever been humiliated, betrayed, and left behind, this story is for you. Let them laugh. Let them mock you. Let them think they've won. Then disappear. Reinvent yourself. Come back stronger, bigger, and more powerful than they ever imagined. And when they finally realize what they lost, smile, walk away, and never look back. Because the best revenge isn't anger. It isn't hate. It's becoming someone they can never touch again. The past was dead, and I had killed it with my success. Every scar, every betrayal, every tear, they had all become fuel for something greater. But something inside me knew the story wasn't over. People like Zane and my former best friend, they don't just fade away. They linger, watching from the sidelines, waiting for a moment to claw their way back into my life. But I wasn't that weak girl anymore. I had learned one unshakable truth. When you rise, the people who try to destroy you will always come back. This time, on their knees. And I was right. A few weeks later, my assistant hesitated before handing me a note. A handwritten letter. My name was scrawled across it in familiar ink. I knew before even opening it. Zane. He was reaching out, trying to worm his way back in. I made mistakes. I was young. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. The same tired lines men, like him, use when they finally see your worth. He even had the audacity to ask if we could meet, as if I owed him anything, as if he deserved even a second of my time. I didn't respond, but that wasn't enough. Zane wasn't the type to accept silence. He found out I was attending a charity gala the following weekend, and just like that, he showed up. I saw him across the grand ballroom, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. For a brief second, I saw it: desperation. The man who once made me feel invisible was now the one drowning in irrelevance. And I was the center of it all. The cameras flashed around me, whispers followed me. Zane took a step forward, but I didn't move. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I turned to the man beside me, the billionaire CEO I was in talks with for my next venture, a man far more powerful than Zane could ever dream to be. I smiled, whispered something in his ear, and he laughed. That moment was all it took. Zane froze. He saw it now. The gap between us, the difference in our worlds. He had spent his life playing games, manipulating, deceiving, and now he had lost the only game that truly mattered. He had lost me. But the real masterpiece, it came later that night. The world had already turned its back on Zane, but I decided to make it permanent. I sent out a single tweet. Some people don't deserve a second chance. Not because they hurt you, but because they never truly change. It was vague, subtle, but people knew. The internet erupted. Comments poured in, exposing old secrets, retelling stories of how he had used people, betrayed them. And just like that, his reputation crumbled. Not because I attacked him, but because I simply reminded the world who he really was. The next morning, my assistant smirked as she handed me a tablet. Zane's name was trending, but not in the way he had hoped. Headlines called him out, his past resurfacing in ways he never saw coming. My former best friend, she wasn't spared either. Someone dug up old screenshots of her mocking me, laughing at my pain. The world turned against them. They had once made me a joke, but now the joke was on them. And I was untouchable. The higher I climbed, the smaller they became. I was a storm they could never escape. But here's the thing about revenge. It's not about destroying your enemies. It's about proving you never needed them. I didn't need to ruin Zane. He had done that to himself. I didn't need to humiliate my ex-best friend. She had set her own trap. All I did was stand tall, thrive, and let the world see the truth. And the truth, no one remembers the ones who betray. They only remember the ones who rise above it. And that's exactly what I had done. Years later, I found myself at another event, this time as the guest of honor. A woman at the peak of her power. My business had expanded across continents. My name carried weight in industries I once only dreamed of entering. And then a journalist asked me something unexpected. If you could go back and change anything about your past, would you? I thought about it. The pain, the betrayals, the nights spent crying over people who never deserved me. And then I smiled. No, I said, because every single heartbreak led me here. And I wouldn't trade this life for anything. That's the thing people never tell you about success. It doesn't erase the past, but it makes it irrelevant. The people who broke you, one day, they become nothing more than distant names, shadows of a life you no longer recognize. Zane, my ex-best friend, they were just stepping stones, lessons, reminders of who I would never be again. And as I raised my glass that night, surrounded by people who truly valued me, I knew one thing for certain. I had won. And they had lost the only person who ever truly cared for them. So to the girl out there, reading this, feeling like she'll never recover from betrayal, listen to me. You are worth more than the people who made you question yourself. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything to them. You just need to rise. Let them regret losing you. Let them watch from afar, wishing they had treated you better. Because the best revenge, it's not in making them suffer. It's in becoming someone they can never reach again. I thought the chapter was closed. I had won. Zane and my ex-best friend were nothing more than ghosts of a past life I had outgrown. But life has a twisted sense of humor. Because one night, just as I was celebrating another business milestone, I received an anonymous message. The words were chilling. You think you're untouchable, but secrets have a way of coming back. My heart stopped for a second. What secret? I had nothing to hide. Unless someone was trying to rewrite history. Someone who wanted revenge on me. For the first time in years, I felt a shadow creeping over me. The past wasn't done with me yet. I needed to know who was behind this. And so I hired the best cyber investigator money could buy. Within 24 hours, I had my answer. It was her, my former best friend. Only she wasn't just bitter. She was dangerous. She had started spreading lies, twisting old stories, making it look like I was the villain all along. She wanted to destroy me the way I had unknowingly destroyed her. But here's what she didn't realize. I was no longer the girl who played defense. If she wanted war, she would get one. I exposed her lies effortlessly. Every fake claim, every manipulation. The internet turned against her in a single day. But that wasn't the real twist. No, the real shock came when my investigator found something buried deep in her past. Something even she didn't know I had discovered. She had stolen hundreds of thousands from her last job. And the company? They were looking for her. With one anonymous tip, her entire world collapsed. Police reports, investigations, lawsuits. She thought she could drag me down, but instead, she drowned in her own mistakes. The last time I saw her, she was running, this time from the law. And as for Zane, he didn't even try to get involved. He was nothing now, a man who had wasted his potential and ended up in mediocrity. The final nail in the coffin? He sent another message, begging for help. And I didn't even bother to open it. The lesson was clear. You either grow or you decay. I had transformed, evolved, become something unstoppable. They had rotted in their own mistakes. And just when I thought the story had truly ended, fate threw me one last curveball. Because one night at an elite networking event, I locked eyes with someone I never expected to see again. A man who had been watching from the sidelines for years. A man who had witnessed my rise and knew exactly who I had become. His name was Aiden Carter, a billionaire investor, ruthless, unforgiving, and somehow, in a world filled with betrayals, he was the only person I had ever truly respected. You've done well, he said, a smirk playing on his lips. But tell me something. When you're at the top, isn't it exhausting keeping everyone beneath you? I held his gaze, knowing he was challenging me, testing me, but I wasn't afraid. I had conquered my demons. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready for something more. Because power, it's addictive. The more you have, the more you crave. I had destroyed my past enemies, built an empire, and proved my worth. But now, I was standing at the edge of something even bigger. Aiden saw it. He felt it. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning of something even greater. something more dangerous, something unstoppable, because I had already proven I could rise from the ashes. Now, I was ready to set the world on fire. So to those who doubted me, betrayed me, and tried to break me, watch closely, because the girl you once knew, she's gone. And in her place, a force you'll never be able to control. I am untouchable. I am unstoppable. And from this moment on, the world will remember my name, not as the girl who chased love, but as the woman who built an empire and never looked back. The past was dead, and I had killed it with my success. Every scar, every betrayal, every tear, they had all become fuel for something greater. But something inside me knew the story wasn't over. People like Zane and my former best friend, they don't just fade away. They linger, watching from the sidelines, waiting for a moment to claw their way back into my life. But I wasn't that weak girl anymore. I had learned one unshakable truth. When you rise, the people who tried to destroy you will always come back, this time, on their knees. And I was right. A few weeks later, my assistant hesitated before handing me a note, a handwritten letter. My name was scrawled across it in familiar ink. I knew before even opening it. Zane. He was reaching out, trying to worm his way back in. I made mistakes. I was young. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. The same tired lines men like him use when they finally see your worth. He even had the audacity to ask if we could meet, as if I owed him anything, as if he deserved even a second of my time. I didn't respond, but that wasn't enough. Zane wasn't the type to accept silence. He found out I was attending a charity gala the following weekend, and just like that, he showed up. I saw him across the grand ballroom, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. For a brief second, I saw it. Desperation. The man who once made me feel invisible was now the one drowning in irrelevance. And I was the center of it all. The cameras flashed around me. Whispers followed me. Zane took a step forward, but I didn't move. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I turned to the man beside me, the billionaire CEO I was in talks with for my next venture. A man far more powerful than Zane could ever dream to be. I smiled, whispered something in his ear, and he laughed. That moment was all it took. Zane froze. He saw it now, the gap between us, the difference in our worlds. He had spent his life playing games, manipulating, deceiving, and now he had lost the only game that truly mattered. He had lost me, but the real masterpiece, it came later that night. The world had already turned its back on Zane, but I decided to make it permanent. I sent out a single tweet. Some people don't deserve a second chance. Not because they hurt you, but because they never truly change. It was vague, subtle, but people knew. The internet erupted. Comments poured in, exposing old secrets, retelling stories of how he had used people, betrayed them. And just like that, his reputation crumbled. Not because I attacked him, but because I simply reminded the world who he really was. The next morning, my assistant smirked as she handed me a tablet. Zane's name was trending, but not in the way he had hoped. Headlines called him out, his past resurfacing in ways he never saw coming. My former best friend, she wasn't spared either. Someone dug up old screenshots of her mocking me, laughing at my pain. The world turned against them. They had once made me a joke, but now the joke was on them. And I was untouchable. The higher I climbed, the smaller they became. I was a storm they could never escape. But here's the thing about revenge. It's not about destroying your enemies. It's about proving you never needed them. I didn't need to ruin Zane. He had done that to himself. I didn't need to humiliate my ex-best friend. She had set her own trap. All I did was stand tall, thrive, and let the world see the truth. And the truth, no one remembers the ones who betray. They only remember the ones who rise above it. And that's exactly what I had done. Years later, I found myself at another event, this time as the guest of honor. A woman at the peak of her power. My business had expanded across continents. My name carried weight in industries I once only dreamed of entering. And then a journalist asked me something unexpected. If you could go back and change anything about your past, would you? I thought about it. The pain, the betrayals, the nights spent crying over people who never deserved me. And then I smiled. No, I said, because every single heartbreak led me here. And I wouldn't trade this life for anything. That's the thing people never tell you about success. It doesn't erase the past, but it makes it irrelevant. The people who broke you, one day, they become nothing more than distant names, shadows of a life you no longer recognize. Zane, my ex-best friend, they were just stepping stones, lessons, reminders of who I would never be again. And as I raised my glass that night, surrounded by people who truly valued me, I knew one thing for certain. I had won. And they had lost the only person who ever truly cared for them. So to the girl out there, reading this, feeling like she'll never recover from betrayal, listen to me. You are worth more than the people who made you question yourself. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything to them. You just need to rise. Let them regret losing you. Let them watch from afar, wishing they had treated you better. Because the best revenge, it's not in making them suffer. It's in becoming someone they can never reach again. Zane was nothing but a ghost now, a fleeting mistake in the grand story of my life. I had closed that chapter and burned the book. But the thing about ghosts, sometimes they refuse to stay buried. One night, I received an email from an unknown sender. The subject line, "We need to talk. It's urgent." I almost deleted it, but something in my gut told me to open it. And when I did, my blood ran cold. Attached was a blurry photograph, me in my office taken from a distance. The message below read, "You think you're untouchable? Watch me." A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't some desperate love letter. This was a threat. And threats were something I didn't take lightly. I forwarded the email to my security team and told them to trace the sender. Within an hour, I had my answer. It was her, my ex-best friend, the one I had exposed, the one who had lost everything. But she wasn't just looking for revenge. She was hunting for something more. I didn't know what she wanted yet, but one thing was certain. This wasn't over. And I wasn't going to wait for her next move. I had spent years building an empire, one where I controlled the narrative. And now, someone thought they could shake me? No, that wasn't how this worked. The next morning, I had a private investigator track her down. What I found, she was living in a rundown apartment, drowning in debt, hopping from one failed scheme to another. Desperation clung to her like a second skin. That's when I realized the truth. She had nothing left to lose. And that made her dangerous. More dangerous than she had ever been before. It was time to end this once and for all. I arranged a meeting. Not in secret, not in the shadows. A public place. A high-end rooftop restaurant where she wouldn't dare try anything reckless. She showed up late, her eyes sunken, her once proud demeanor reduced to bitterness. "You really think you can get rid of me?" she sneered, leaning forward. I didn't flinch. I simply tilted my head and smiled. "I don't think," I said, voice calm but lethal. "I know." She scoffed, but I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. She wasn't expecting this. She thought she still had control. But that was her final mistake. "Let me guess," I continued, swirling the glass in my hand. "You thought you could scare me? Shake me? Make me feel powerless?" She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. Newsflash. I don't break. I don't bend. And, most importantly, I don't forgive. I pulled out a file from my bag and slid it across the table. She hesitated before opening it, and then her face drained of color, because inside were the documents I had collected, proof of every scam, every crime, every dirty trick she had pulled. She wasn't just ruined. She was finished. You had one chance, I said, standing up. One chance to move on, to rebuild. But instead, you chose war. And now, you've lost everything. She looked up, desperation flickering in her eyes. You wouldn't, she whispered. I leaned down, meeting her gaze. Watch me. And with that, I walked away, leaving her sitting there, shaking. The very next day, news broke. Investigations were reopened, her criminal past unearthed. She tried to fight back, but it was useless. She had spent years trying to destroy me. But in the end, she had only destroyed herself. I should have felt relief, triumph, satisfaction. But as I stood in my penthouse, staring out at the glittering city, a strange emptiness settled over me. Was this really the end? Had I won, or had I simply become something else entirely? The girl who once chased love, who once believed in friendship, was she still in there, buried under all this power? I didn't know. And maybe that was the real price of success. Not money, not fame, but the slow loss of the person you once were. The thought haunted me more than any enemy ever could. But I had no time for ghosts. The world didn't wait for self-reflection. Deals needed to be made. Power needed to be maintained. And so, I did what I always did. I moved forward. That night, I attended an exclusive investors' gala, a place where the real players met. And that's when I saw him again, Aiden Carter, billionaire, ruthless strategist, the one man who had ever truly challenged me. You look like someone who's just won a war, he said, smirking as he handed me a drink. I took it, meeting his gaze. Maybe, I murmured, or maybe the real war is just beginning. Because power, it never settles. The moment you think you're at the top, someone else is already planning how to take you down. I had burned my past, risen from the ashes, built an empire. But there was something bigger ahead. A game of power unlike anything I had ever played before. Aiden knew it. I knew it. And deep down, I felt it. I wasn't done yet. The world had seen my rise. Now, they were about to see what I could really do. So to anyone who thought my story was over, watch closely. Because this wasn't an ending. This was the beginning of my greatest chapter, yet. Aiden's eyes held something dangerous. A challenge. A promise, a warning. He wasn't like the others. He wasn't someone I could outmaneuver with a single move. If I wanted to win against him, I had to be sharper, smarter, and more ruthless than ever. What's the real reason you're here? I asked, sipping my drink. He smirked, leaning closer. Because you fascinate me, he admitted. You built an empire out of nothing. You crushed everyone in your way. But tell me, do you even know what your next move is? His words sent a chill through me. Did I? For years, I had been driven by one thing, revenge. The need to prove that I was more than a foolish girl chasing love. But now, I had won. My enemies were gone. My power was unquestionable. My name was everywhere. Yet, for the first time, I felt something strange. A sense of emptiness. If revenge had fueled me for so long, then what was left now? Aiden must have sensed it because his smirk deepened. You don't have a plan, do you? He whispered. You've spent years fighting to get here. But what happens when the war is over? I hated how easily he could read me, how effortlessly he pulled apart the walls I had spent years building. But he was right. I had spent so much time proving myself that I had forgotten to ask the most important question. What now? I always have a plan. I lied, forcing a smirk of my own. Aiden tilted his head, amused but unconvinced. Then let's make a bet, he said. The next billion-dollar deal, you and me, winner takes all. No mercy. My pulse quickened. A new challenge. A new war. Maybe, just maybe, this was exactly what I needed. The next morning, I received the details of the deal. A tech company on the verge of collapse, drowning in lawsuits and scandal. Aiden wanted to acquire it, rebuild it, and turn it into an empire. But there was only one problem. I had already planned to do the same. The battlefield had been set. Two minds, equally ruthless, equally brilliant, going head to head. This wasn't about money. This was about dominance. And I had no intention of losing. Aiden wanted a war. Then I'd give him one he'd never forget. I spent the next 48 hours in complete isolation, analyzing every weakness in the company, identifying the key players, mapping out every possible move. By the time I stepped out of my office, I had a plan so airtight, so lethal, that even Aiden wouldn't see it coming. Step 1, take control from the inside. I arranged a private meeting with the company's biggest investor, a man desperate to cut his losses. Sell your shares to me, I said, my voice like silk, and watch me turn this company into gold. He hesitated, but in the end, they always say yes. The moment Aiden found out, he called me. You move fast, he admitted, amusement lacing his voice. But do you really think I didn't anticipate this? Before I could respond, he sent me a file. I opened it, my heart hammering. He had already secured the patents. The very technology that could save this company, he owned it now. I let out a slow breath. This wasn't going to be easy. But I didn't want easy. I wanted to win. And if Aiden wanted to play dirty, then I'd show him just how ruthless I could be. The next week was war. Boardroom meetings turned into battlegrounds. Stock prices shifted like weapons. Power players whispered in the shadows. Aiden and I were locked in a deadly game. Each move met with an even stronger counter. But there was something else happening too, a tension that had nothing to do with business. Every glance, every sharp remark, every late-night negotiation. It felt like a battle of control, not just over the company, but over each other. I hated him. I admired him. I wanted to destroy him. And I wasn't sure which desire was stronger. Then, one night, the game shifted. Aiden called me at midnight, his voice unreadable. Let's meet, he said. No boardrooms, no lawyers, just you and me. I should have refused. I should have laughed in his face. Instead, I found myself driving through the city, heart pounding. When I arrived, he was waiting for me, leaning against his car, watching me with a look that sent a shiver down my spine. Why are we really doing this? I asked, crossing my arms. He smirked. Because we can't help it. And in that moment, I knew he was right. For the first time in years, I felt something that wasn't just hunger for power or revenge. I felt alive. The game had become something more than business. It was about two people who had spent their whole lives fighting, who had never met an equal, finally finding someone who could match them. But I wasn't about to let my guard down. Not now. This doesn't change anything, I said, voice steady. I'm still going to win. Aiden chuckled, stepping closer. That's what makes this fun, he whispered. And just like that, the war continued. Power, strategy, control. Those had been my weapons for so long. But now there was something new, a fire I had never expected. Aiden was dangerous, unpredictable, impossible to ignore. And deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't just a business rivalry anymore. It was a game of hearts and minds. A battle neither of us could afford to lose. And in the end, only one of us would walk away unscathed. Aiden wasn't just playing the game. He was rewriting the rules. Every move I made, he anticipated. Every strategy, one crafted, he dismantled. He was the first person who had ever made me question if I was truly untouchable. And yet, I wasn't afraid. I was exhilarated. "You like this, don't you?" he murmured one night after another brutal negotiation. The chase. The challenge. Me. His confidence was infuriating. Addictive. "I like winning." I shot back. He smirked, stepping closer. "Then let's see who gets to the finish line first." And just like that, the war escalated. The company was crumbling under the weight of our battle. Investors were panicking. The media was buzzing. Stocks swung violently between us. This was more than business now. It was a spectacle. The world was watching, waiting to see who would rise and who would fall. And then he made his biggest move yet. He didn't just fight back. He offered me a deal. "Merge with me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "We stop fighting and build something even bigger." I stared at him, pulse racing. It was tempting. Too tempting. But could I trust him? Could I trust myself? I refused. Of course I did. I had spent too long fighting to hand over control now. "You think I'd let you win this easily?" I challenged. Aiden just laughed, shaking his head. "This isn't about winning anymore, is it?" His words rattled me. Was he right? Had this become something else? I pushed the thought away. I needed to stay focused. No distractions. No feelings. This was a war, and I would end it on my terms. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was already too deep. And Aiden? He was the only one who saw it. Then, he struck where I never expected. He didn't attack my business. He went after my past. One day, a news article surfaced. My old university, my past heartbreak, my escape. Everything I had buried was now public knowledge. Zane's name was in the headlines. My old best friend's betrayal was laid out for the world to see. Aiden had exposed it all. My hands shook as I read the article. This wasn't a power move. This was personal. He had found my deepest wound, and now everyone knew. How dare he? How dare he? I stormed into his office, fury burning in my veins. He was waiting for me, calm, collected, as if he hadn't just ripped my past open for the world to see. "How could you?" I hissed. Aiden leaned back, unfazed. "I did you a favor." "A favor? A favor? You wanted power, but you were still running from your past. Now it's out. Now you're untouchable. No more ghosts haunting you." My nails dug into my palms. He thought he had helped me. He thought this was some kind of twisted lesson. But all he had done was make himself my newest enemy. I left without another word. I didn't need revenge. I needed to win. If Aiden wanted to play dirty, I'd show him what true destruction looked like. The next morning, I launched a counterattack so brutal, so absolute, that even he didn't see it coming. I bought out his biggest investors. I turned the media against him. I dismantled his empire piece by piece. "She's out for blood," the headlines screamed. And they were right. Aiden had unleashed something in me that even I didn't recognize. A hunger, a rage, a power that couldn't be stopped. Days passed, weeks. Aiden fought back, but he was losing ground. And then, one night, I received a message. "Meet me." My hands tightened around my phone. Every instinct told me to ignore him. But another part of me, asterisk, asterisk, the part that had never stopped craving the battle, craving him, asterisk, asterisk, wanted to see this through. One last war. One final confrontation. I arrived at our usual place, my heart a battlefield of its own. Aiden was waiting, his expression unreadable. "You've won," he said simply, but the way he looked at me, it didn't feel like surrender. It felt like something else. "You should be happy," he continued. "You got exactly what you wanted." My lips parted, but no words came out. Had I had power, victory, the world at my feet. But looking at Aiden now, I realized something terrifying. He had never been my enemy. He had been my equal, the only one who had ever matched me, the only one who had ever seen me, truly seen me. And now I had destroyed him. I had won. And yet, I felt like I had lost. Lost something I never even knew I wanted. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. There's still one move left, he said. My heart pounded. Aiden never lost. And if he was saying that now, it meant he had planned this all along. What are you talking about? I demanded. He stepped closer, his eyes burning into mine. You and me, he said. We stop fighting. We build something together. Something bigger than either of us. I should have laughed. I should have walked away. Instead, I found myself asking the one question I had never dared to ask before. What if we did? Power, war, victory. Those were the things that had defined me for so long. But for the first time, I wondered, what if there was something more? What if the game wasn't about winning or losing? What if the real power was in choosing something different? Aiden watched me, waiting, daring me to make the leap. And in that moment, I knew the truth. This had never been about revenge. It had been about becoming who I was always meant to be. And maybe, just maybe, Aiden was meant to be part of that too. I took a breath, my heart hammering in my chest. This was the moment, the choice that would define everything. I had spent years building walls, carving out my empire, proving to the world, and to myself that I needed no one, that I was untouchable. And yet, here was Aiden, the one person who had never let me hide, the one person who had seen every version of me, the broken girl, the ruthless queen, the warrior, the survivor. You're afraid, he said softly, not of losing, of what happens when you finally stop fighting. And he was right. I could walk away. I could end this here, leave Aiden in the past like I had done with Sane, my best friend, and everyone else who had failed me. But for the first time, I didn't want to. I had burned the world to the ground in pursuit of revenge, only to realize that winning meant nothing if I had no one left to stand beside me. My entire life had been a battle, but what if I could build something greater than war? What if power wasn't about destroying, but about creating? I met his gaze. I'm in. A slow smile spread across his face. Not victory, not arrogance, but something deeper. Then let's rewrite the game, he said. And just like that, everything changed. We weren't enemies anymore. We weren't rivals. We were something more. That night, we made the deal that would shake the business world to its core. A merger, not of companies, but of empires. Headlines exploded the next morning. The two titans joined forces. A deal that will change everything. The stock market soared. Investors scrambled. The world watched. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just standing alone. But power attracts enemies, and not everyone wanted to see us win. Anonymous threats, a corporate betrayal, a boardroom coup. The shadows of my past tried to creep back in, whispering that I should destroy before I was destroyed. But Aiden stopped me. We don't burn this time, he said. We build. And I realized I didn't have to be the girl who was always running or always fighting. I could be more. We could be more. So instead of tearing them down, we outmaneuvered them. Smarter, stronger, unstoppable. And when the dust settled, we stood at the top, together. One evening, standing in the penthouse overlooking the city, I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who chased love that never saw her, the one who thought success meant revenge. She was gone. In her place was someone powerful, fearless, whole. Do you regret it? Aiden asked, watching me. I turned to him, a slow smile curving my lips. Not for a second. I had spent years proving I was unstoppable, but the real victory wasn't power. It was knowing I didn't have to do it alone. This was the life I truly deserved. The end.